Sometimes the win will not be obvious, but that does not mean that there isn't one. In this position it seems like white is clearly pushing for an advantage, having one extra pawn and all of the white pieces very close to the black king, which is cornered. But the issue seems to be that this rook is kind of in the way of the pawns, and the black rook is always going to be able to give checks and secure a draw. For example, after something like rook f6, making space for the pawns and preparing to defend the king against any checks, the rook can simply go to d7, and now this is going to defend against the advance of any pawn. For example, after g6, black can actually just trade and then play rook to g7 and there is no progress to be made. This is a drawn endgame. And if you try to counterattack the rook like this, now black is actually going to trade and play the very precise h6. Because of course, if you take this pawn, now these are two outside pawns and they are doubled, and with the king stuck in the center, there is not going to be any way to make any progress with these pawns. If you ignore the pawn, black is going to take, and after you take, it's the same situation. And if you push, this is actually a stalemate and another draw. But white has a way to win this with the very precise g6, using the fact that this pawn is pinned to the black king, and so black has to come to the defense of the pawn. For instance, if black tries to check the king forever, the king is actually going to march down until eventually there are no more checks, and after the rook moves, we can take this pawn, and now this is going to be much easier to win. So black's best try is rook to d7, defending the pawn like this. Of course, we cannot rush with this pawn push, the rook can simply take. And, very importantly, we cannot take like this, because once again these pawns are doubled on the edge of the board and there is no progress to be made. But white has another option, it can take with the rook. And now black's only move is to capture back, because otherwise this is simply checkmate. And we get to this position where it seems like black is simply out of the woods. We cannot push here, we lose the pawn. And we cannot take the rook, because yet again this is another draw with the outside pawn. So is this it? Is this simply a draw? Well, not exactly. White has the brilliant h6. This places black in a pretty complicated position, because now we are preparing to go g7 check, defended by yet another pawn, and you cannot take this pawn, because otherwise this is going to lead to a checkmate in just 2 moves. So black will have to escape with the rook, but after any move like this we can still give a check. If black takes this time we have another pawn, and if black moves the king, now we're going to have a queen for a rook and win this game. If you love incredible chess, follow for more.